All right, so we are talking about something while I open this up.
Idle circuit. Number 2.
All right, so what did we end up? We left off yesterday talking about the constant effort spring.
In the air impact, or the impact air chamber.
In the air impact chamber supplements the transition from idle to servo regulator control, and spring helps move the air diaphragm smoothly from low to higher power settings. Well, there you are.
Like a shock absorber.
And let's see, we have air and fuel, so this would be
That's your
the
unmetered.
unmetered. And this is what I hate about so much of this stuff is it goes, I think some of it they bring in the RSA and not the RSA. Was that just the RS, I think? Because we can see where this spring is right there is in the fuel chamber. And, well, there's a little spring, but here's the constant effort spring, and there's the constant head spring. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the servo spring right there. So there's our constant head.
Spring.
There's another word.
Idle.
Idle spring. Okay. And so if this is the metered, unmetered, impact, and venturi. Is that correct? Venturi, impact. Yep. It's not important. Constant head idle spring does what?
Keeps it open up enough for idle.
Open up enough for idle. Why? Not enough airflow. Constant effort spring does what? Helps transition. Is off idle. All right, so we got that. I think that's all we need to do about that. All right, so this right here is the servo valve. Obviously, I told you it's a little ball on there, but it's the same thing as the poppet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's called ball.
Called a ball. Let's see, where do we go from there? Let's see, I have idle circuit in servos connected to throttle linkage. Yeah. We can go with that. All right, next point I was going to make. So here we go. Now I'm going to have to jump around with some photos because it's hard to get what I want here. Idle circuit, in servo, circuit. Servo is connected to throttle linkage. It's connected to throttle linkage. We'll finish this. At idle, the main jet is reduced in size. The main jet is reduced in size. This creates a larger pressure differential. At fuel metering force, which tends to close the valve, Got it? Go into pictures. Come back. Let's see. So many pictures. All right, so the last thing I said was, at idle, the main jet is reduced in size.
Yes.
At idle. Okay. Here's the idle valve, the throttle idle valve. And as you go to idle, it is going to, in theory, will slide this in. It's actually rotating discs, but this is easier to draw, I guess. So it slides in, which decreases the size of the main metering jet. This one is only affecting the pressure going into this chamber here, the metered fuel. Right? So this creates a larger pressure differential. So we still have in here, if we said it was 5 psi coming into here, now we've only got, say, 1. So you got a larger pressure differential. So it's going to tend to do what to the poppet?
Close it.
Close it. Closes the poppet, you get less fuel, which is a good thing because we're at idle. Okay. Let's see. So that covers those both. The idle circuit, the servo is connected to the throttle linkage. So the throttle linkage, just like kind of like we saw with the, especially the PR58, where at idle it had that little slider down at the bottom. You guys are like, I don't know what the PR58 was. It's pressure carb. It was last week. You don't care. I know. But so you got that? That makes sense.
Are the rotating discs similar to like the back section on the stronger?
Yeah,
Those rotating?
right there.
Oh, the alignment?
They're gonna look like that. Okay, we get back to that. Ah, very much so. So they look like that. So here we go. Let me enlarge for you. Main metering jet looks a little blocked off to me because if we look,
Is open.
yeah. So main metering jets are at idle. We have an enrichment jet channel, but this is at idle position. Wish they'd show this a little bit better. It's a very, very small hole at this point.
It's like it's on cruise. That little divot cut out.
Right there. So we'll say that little
So it's
bit
just
right
a
there.
little black dot
Yep.
is the actual opening.
Yeah, well, it's shaped more like the little C right there. So there we go. So at cruise, you're going to get more of the main metering jet. And then takeoff position, we're going to have 2 jets.
You get the enrichment jet.
The enrichment jet, which is the next thing I was going to write. So lucky for me, I showed that picture. All right. Enrichment system. Some engines, I would imagine most of them, but I don't know, use an enrichment jet, which is parallel to the main jet. Parallel to the main jet. As the throttle is opened, enrichment jet opens, allowing more fuel to flow to flow divider. All right, manual mixture control. I don't love what I wrote here, just because I'm going to go back to this.
Is it similar to pressure carbs?
Huh?
Yeah.
I like this one because it's this way. All right, so here's the manual mixture control. And looking at how this works and how it's drawn, it sure looks to me like they purposely drew it so that it reduces the pressure both going into the metered and the unmetered side. So let's just think about that. And let's say, what if that is the case? So we've got an air metering force. Let's say we had 1, 1, 5, and this would have to be what, 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it right, so. At 1, 1, 5, and 3. Because these two are going to add, so that's 2. These are going to subtract, so that's 2. So I want less fuel to flow. So I start reducing this. What's that going to do to my air metering force?
Drop it.
Why?
Air metering force stays the same. It's not doing
No,
anything.
air metering stays the same. You tricked me.
Okay. So what would happen to the pressure going over here into the unmetered?
It would decrease.
If we move the mixture control in,
Decrease.
it would decrease it by 1. And what do you think it would do here?
Same.
Decrease. Just kind of thinking through this. So that would be 2, and that would be 2. But how did we get less fuel now?
Less flow.
How does it block the unmetered channel without fully closing
Well, remember, this is just a representation drawing.
the... Okay.
So kind of got to go with what it is. They're actually rotating discs.
Oh, yes.
Would that work?
Yeah.
Okay, and here's why I think it would work. We're in balance.
Yep.
So the poppet's where it's got to be, because you can't reduce the airflow and you can't reduce air metering force, right? Tell me if I'm wrong, because this is, the book doesn't say this. You just got to kind of extrapolate. And like I said, I was just reading through my notes, going, I don't even like that. I think it's what the book wrote, and I'm like, yeah, it's. This is what it said: effectively reduces the size of the metering jet. True, but it also has to effectively do something with the unmetered fuel, because otherwise, if we just close this off, we could play that game. We just close this off, then we would kind of stay the same. So we had 1, 1, 3, 5, and then we close that off, 1, 1. That stays the same, and then we reduce it a little bit to 2. Well, then we're out of balance,
Yeah.
right? And so we're out of balance. That'd be 2. This would be 3. So we'd have more. Let me see, metering force. And so what would it?
It'd be closed, a little more
Or
closed.
closed.
A little more closed, which would, okay, let's just make sure that worked out that way. So 1, 1,
But it would
5,
be
I said 2. So the 1 and 1,
That's trying to pull it to the right.
it wants to go this way.
Yep.
So that opens it. 5 wants to close it.
Yep.
And 2 wants to open it. So,
You'd only have
oops,
to-
we're out of balance though. This has to be 3, right?
It has
You-
to.
It has to be 3 to be balanced. But
You'd have
if-
five.
But you were saying that
If it
in
all
balance,
locked
if it's
over the
just
wall.
cutting off your metered fuel.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, so if we just cut off the metered fuel, we brought it down to 2. That's what I said, 2. It's got to go in balance. So what it's going to do?
Close it.
Try and close it.
So I've got 5 trying to close it, and I've
You have
only got 4
4 trying to open.
trying to open it. So 5 would close it down a little bit. So that would, in theory, kind of work
But wouldn't it?
through there. And so,
Once it got all the way to a point, wouldn't it?
tell you what, maybe instead of looking at this crazy drawing, which is not crazy, it's a nice drawing, we're going to look at this right here.
That crazy drawing.
That crazy drawing. There we go. All right, so this is what we actually have. So let's start at the beginning here. That's not what I wanted to do at all, but thank you for that. All right, start at the beginning. Fuel inlet. Fuel comes in here, goes through a strainer. I often ask you guys, how often should we check the strainer? The answer that I'm looking for is at least,
100 hour or 40 hour, whichever comes first.
At least every engine.
okay, that's just kind of a blanket statement to get you to think about doing that. But what is the real answer? Whatever the maintenance manual says. If it says every 5 hours, do it every 5 hours. The answer that I don't want to hear is every overhaul. Which, if you're following the book, which nobody does in general aviation because you don't need to, well, every 12 years or 2,000 to 3,000 hours, whichever comes first. I guess I'll check it. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not the right answer. It's, no longer than every annual 100 hour. Okay, so it goes through the strainer. It's going to come down through here. This is a rotating valve right here. And so it can enlarge these passageways or close them off. This is connected to the manual mixture control. So that is your mixture right there, whether or not you're letting it more or less. Now, going back to our drawing, was the mixture control modifying the fuel to both metered and unmetered? Well,
Yeah.
there's a passage right here that flows around and goes right into
Yep.
the
It's metered.
unmetered, because that's the opposite. The ball's backwards this time.
Yep.
And it shoots through here and then goes into the
Metered.
metering jet.
Yep.
So it looks to me like it definitely does control both sides.
Yep.
And I think this drawing probably makes more sense. I can just go along with that. So manual mixture control, when we pull it to idle cutoff, we can effectively block both passages here, and you get
Nothing.
no fuel going to the fuel control unit. Which, by the way, just, for those of you working on carburetors, if you have it in idle cutoff and try and start the ground power unit,
It won't work.
it doesn't work. Not that anybody's tried that in here.
Of course not.
All right. All right, so you have the manual mixture control. Then you're going to go through into, there's another sliding thing right here, but this is connected to the throttle. So the throttle's on the other side. And there's actually two arms on the throttle. They're connected together. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. So one side is going to control this disc. The other arm is going to control the butterfly valve. Follow? Because, hey, where's the butterfly valve?
Right.
It's not on here.
It's over there.
It's over there.
Down there.
It's way over here.
There.
Well, you got to have a control over here. So it looks like this right here. It's not even a good picture. I'll get you a better picture. All right. So fuel is going to go through here. We have that sliding valve. Why do we have this valve right here?
12 meter.
I don't.
You do know. We've talked about this. And
Restrict the fuel flow at idle.
Full throttle?
what? Okay. What? How are we operating this at idle?
You're not. Or
Was that?
It's after the metering jet, the idle.
Okay, so the metering
It's
jet
kind of closing off your fuel at idle.
closing off. It's got it. We have a manual control at idle. Remember, this thing's kind of stupid at idle. Doesn't know. What gives us air metering force at idle? A what? Spring. So we got a spring. Spring doesn't know how much air is going through. So what do we do to compensate?
Manually controlled.
Got to manually control the fuel. So the more throttle you give it, the more that is going to open up that orifice. Right? It's pre-calculated for low RPMs. We put in a spring. We say, yeah, just open the poppet valve this far. And the poppet valve's open. It's kind of stupid. It just throws the fuel in. And so as we advance the throttle, that it's like an aperture. It gets bigger and bigger. I showed you the little sliding vein. Starts to open up more and more of that jet. Right. That's what that's doing right there.
Yep.
It's sliding. It's opening up more and more and more. As now we're going to get to a point where we have enough air metering force to start controlling the poppet valve, or the servo valve is appropriate. Right. Once that starts operating, then I need this sliding valve out the way. Right. Okay. So I can get that out of the way. We can also look, I don't think this shows a representation of that parallel economizer jet, enrichment system jet. I don't see it necessarily. No. Okay, so follow me so far? Okay. So we're now off and we're running, we're in cruise. This can be wide open for mixture, or I can pull the mixture back a little bit, start reducing the fuel flow through here before it gets to the main metering jet. That's going to lean it out a little bit. Pull it all the way. It's going to shut off these passages, cut off the fuel, dies. That's how we shut it down. Because notice, like on the PS5, we had to get the idle spring out of the way. There's nothing connected to these springs, so the idle spring is not going to go away. It's there. We don't affect that. This time we're just going to shut the fuel off. We didn't see that in the pressure carbs. It's different. So got it? Positive shut off for the fuel. There it goes. All right, so we got our fuel coming around in here. We've got inlet fuel pressure and metered fuel pressure. We've already looked at that. The only difference is we looked at it the other way around. This is now 180 out. Ball's over here instead of over here, but same thing. Everybody follow? Okay, so I think we've effectively covered fuel metering force, air metering force. We've talked about the manual mixture control. We talked about the idle valve throttle lever. Everybody follow so far? Okay. We've touched on the enrichment system. It'd be a parallel jet in here, which I don't see a representation of it. Manual mixture control. What did I write? Effectively reduces the size. Oh yeah, I didn't want to do that. I thought it was like, it does. It reduces the size of the main metering jet. That it does. Yeah.
So when you're using the manual mixture control,
Yes.
how does is it oval, or is that way that when you turn it, is that how it shuts it off, or is it?
There's the holes and discs in there.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if
whenever it turns, it's gonna either.
Let's see if I have a picture of that. Yeah. Nope, that's the idle valve. Servo. No, I don't have a picture. You're going to get a chance to take one apart and actually look at it. So sorry. Not the best picture, but that's the throttle right there with the two levers. And that's kind of a big deal, actually. That's it right there. And right there. And so you can see how you would attach your cable right there, and as you pull it, it's going to move this and this and this at the same time. Now, what's going on here is, you remember those the little disc in there that opens up the little hole? All right, well, that's right here under this cap. Okay, and this one up here is running the throttle valve. So you can imagine they're two independent things. So you got the throttle valve opening and a disc moving over here. Follow? So what if the throttle's open this far and you've got the idle valve open this far and it's running too rich? You got to somehow close off that fuel without adjusting the throttle valve, right? That's what this little mixture screw does. Yeah, so it's right there, and it's got a little R on it with an arrow. What do you think that's telling you? It's telling you which way right is, for those of you who don't know. So on the other side, I'll have a little L for left. I'm making that up. Yes, rich is that way. So you just move the little wheel to the one way and it gets rich, move it the other way and it gets lean. What it does, these are mismatched threads on there, and it pulls that in or spreads it out. And as long as you don't screw up and you're only moving it a little bit, you're fine. But if you should ever accidentally unscrew that, you have to go to this thing called the master clevis list, which is a term you're going to hear, how to reset it and what settings they are and stuff. So don't screw it up. You won't have to. Yeah.
How's the safety?
There's a spring. There's a spring behind it, and the wheel is cut out. So if you look at it on the side, it looks like this as it goes around.
Oh.
Right? And there's a spring on the back side, and the spring just kind of sits in this. And it's not even a tight spring, it's kind of thing. So you just pull the spring down a little bit and move it and let the spring go, and it gets in the, and it works. It's kind of funny.
It's like one of those little ball bearing ones that catch like the rubber.
I wouldn't know about that.
It's like on the sockets.
Sure.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
No, there's no little ball. It's just in the groove. You'll see. I'll show you. All right, let's continue on with this one because this is working out just fine. All right, so we go through there. We've already talked about everything that's happening right here, right? And everybody's good with that. Yes? If you're not, let me know. Well, got the air metering force, got the fuel metering force, you got, right? Got to be in equilibrium, got the ball. You got two springs, you got the idle spring, got the effort spring. All right, so, right, we came in here. We went through the manual mixture control, we went through the idle mixture control, came out, went through here, fuel comes out of the poppet the ball valve, and off it goes to the flow divider. All right, so for the most part, as a GA mechanic, you better know how to adjust this, and you better know how to adjust the idle speed. Does this sound familiar? Other than that, don't screw with this. It's got a lot of stuff in it. Ball bearings and diaphragms, and I wouldn't be opening any of this stuff up, ever, out in the field. This stuff, yes. All right? So this is kind of our business end over here. So it goes to the flow divider. The flow divider has a couple of jobs. I told you the other day. One, it's got to provide that positive shutoff. Boom. Keep fuel from dribbling out through the nozzles. Two, a Lycoming, the Bendix version, it's going to help meter fuel at idle with the V slots, and it's going to distribute the fuel out. So it does that by when fuel comes in, there's a spring pushing down on the diaphragm with the poppet in there. And so the fuel comes up, hits the bottom of the diaphragm, and lifts this poppet up that's in the hole, exposing the V slots. And the more pressure it gets, the further it opens until the V slot is 100% open and the nozzles are flowing at 100%. So it's going to go out to the nozzles. Now I told you yesterday, and it's worth repeating, that this is nozzle pressure calibrated to read what? Gallons per hour. So the pilot's always going to think it's a flow meter, but it's not. It's a pressure gauge. All right. So if I say that the flow went up, as a mechanic, you got to hear me say pressure went up. Right. All right. So it goes through the nozzles. Now the nozzles, I'll show you a little video on these. They're very sensitive little items. Don't hurt their feelings. There are different types. There's one type that comes in two pieces, but they're like penguins. They're married. You can never swap them out. So if you have the two-piece and you take out all 6 of them and you kind of mix them all up, guess what you get to do? You get to buy 6 new ones for somebody. So don't do that. Well, knowing most mechanics are like, that one must have went there, that one went there. I don't see what the difference is. If you're working on, especially at Continental, I don't know if they do this for Lycoming, but especially Continental fuel injection, most Bonanza people have already gone to GAMI injectors, which are, it's an aftermarket where they flow match them. And they'll say, okay, these 2 cylinders should have this size orifice, this one should have this, and so they're exactly matched. And Continental doesn't do that. Like, well, here's 6. But GAMI, they're serial numberized. There's a sticker on the valve cover, which means that the valve cover has to go back in the right spot because the valve cover has a sticker that matches the cylinder that matches the, right? But it says on there, cylinder number, whatever. But I've seen it happen where people are like, valve cover's a valve cover. I don't know what these stickers are. They just throw them back on. So anyway, but otherwise these can actually go in Lycoming. Unless they're GAMI, they can go back into any cylinder. It's not a big deal. All right, these have a couple little jobs. One, they are going to flow fuel through them, but notice the little yellow, which is representing ambient air pressure. This means it's open to the atmosphere so that the diaphragm can go up and down. But you have bleed air comes into these nozzles. So there's a little screen there and bleed air comes in. Well, and this is where some of the great questions come in. If I partially plug the outlet of the fuel going out, what am I going to see?
Would fuel be spewing out of your...
Now, this is screwed into the cylinder, so a little turd got right there, a little booger.
So would fuel go out that air?
Generally, it could. Probably not. Probably not. So we get a partial blockage here. That cylinder is going to not be getting as much fuel. So that cylinder will run lean. What will the pilot be telling me? High fuel flow. Okay. What if the bleed gets plugged? Why is it going to run rich?
Unburnable fuel.
Well, actually get this. When you block off that bleed and that piston has got suction on it and you have suction right there, rather than it pulling in air and fuel and mixing it,
It just pulls fuel.
it starts pulling the fuel in. So the fuel is no longer flowing, it's being pulled in. So what's going to happen to the pressure right here?
It's going to increase. Or maybe
Decrease. It's a vacuum.
It's going to decrease. So the cylinder's going to run rich, but the pressure is going to drop. So the pilot's going to tell you that the fuel flow is low, but in fact it's high. So one cylinder's rich, the rest then must run lean. It's going to run lean because all the right amount of fuel was sent up to this divider to divide up into 4, but this guy, he's taking too much of our fuel. So the rest of us have to run lean. Right. Sorry to pick on you, but you can only pick on Oscar so much. All right, so follow that? Okay. Where do I want to go with here? Automatic mixture control. Says I can talk about that. All right. Oh, there we go. There's automatic. Stop that. Automatic mixture control. We got it right there on this screen. How do you think this works?
bellows.
Bellows with what kind of needle?
An inverted.
Inverted needle. So as we go up in the atmosphere, potato chip bag technology tells us this will expand. And what is that going to do to us?
It's going to open up your impact air to your bleed air.
Open up yellow to blue.
Impact to bleed air, which effectively decreases air metering force, which tends to close the servo valve, which sends less fuel. So, boom, there we are. Drop, mic drop. Okay, now you can change screens. I have seen this one in a book, obviously. It's a bellows type, which is kind of weird. Same thing, but look where it is. It's in the air inlet. I don't know, I just throw that in there, so. See. Same thing, right? As pressure decreases, this will expand, and you can't really see what's going on here, but you know one of these is the impact and one of them is the venturi, so what's going to happen? Less air metering force, so the poppet valves. Let me see.
Let's be.
Yes.
Question.
Yeah.
Sorry, is that supposed to be like veins or like
These?
like the little fin-looking things on the sides? At the
Here?
side? No, at the left and right, where like the those.
In,
Because it says air inlet is just going down.
well, no, that's the main air inlet going into the engine.
Oh, okay.
And these are impact and venturi.
But wouldn't the impact be
The air
inlet?
Yeah. So there's probably impact right here, going right up into here.
So does it like flow around, or is that just like a?
Yeah, it's in the middle.
Okay, so it'd be
Suspended
attached,
in the middle.
Like okay.
Yeah, suspended in the middle, attached.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're like, well, how's the engine getting any air? How's it go through here? I got it. No, it's stuck in the middle,
Okay.
and there's air all around it. So this creates the venturi right here. Kind of like when you work on the Marvel shovelers, and you got the two-piece
Two-piece venturi. Yeah.
venturi or one piece. You have your prime, but the primary. It's like in the middle,
Yeah.
right? It's the same thing. Let me see.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Like,
Back to turbines. Inlet guidance.
All right, flow to. I'm enjoying not writing everything. But you probably want me to write it, huh?
Yes.
Okay. I think I've showed you everything so far. Let me see. Okay, go back to my flow divider. A little egg in there. They said, I can never figure out what the hell they're trying to show me here. But inside of here, and there are all the way around the circumference, there are these little triangles. There's, I don't know, 6, 8, a dozen of them, something like that. And so what happens is, as the fuel goes in and the pressure increases, it will lift this center piece up, exposing more and more of this V slot. Follow? So at idle, you're only going to get this little bit of a triangle. And then at cruise, you're going to get some of the triangle. And then max fuel flow, you get the whole triangle all the way down. And so it is helping to meter fuel. Follow?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, drew you a really nice picture. We talked about the nozzles. All right, what I didn't tell you about is, so we have a nozzle right here. It does have a little screen, and we're going to talk about there's a little number stamped on it. And it's funny, you don't ever, even if this is, I don't see them blocked, you don't want to run wire or drill bits or anything down there. We're going to watch a little video, which is actually pretty decent. It'll show you how to clean them. But ambient air is around that, and ambient air is drawn in through the manifold because the manifold pressure is below ambient air. So that's the one way in, right? But what if we turbocharge, supercharge? Then this spot right here is higher than ambient pressure. So you will not suck air in because everything is a higher pressure.
Yep.
And so it tend to want to go backwards. So what you do is they put these shrouds on there.
And you got boost pressure.
So that boost pressure comes to right here. It's surrounded by upper deck pressure.
Interesting.
Is it? Good. All right. One of the things we do a lot of, and get yourself some little, they say baby bottles. My recommendation, being a father of 6 kids, is when you take baby bottles from the baby and you measure fuel in them, don't bring it back home and put milk back in it until at least you wash it. So. But when you're having problems and the EGTs don't match and CHT doesn't match and things aren't working well and the engine's running rough and you don't know where to go, one of the great things to do is pop off all of the fuel injector nozzles, put a little cup under each, you have to do the same size cup at the same time, and you're going to go in the aircraft, you're going to turn on the power, and you're going to mixture rich, bring up the throttle, hit the boost pump, and these things are going to start flowing. And then time it, or have somebody watch it and fill them up to a quarter or a half or something. And at that point, you can look and see, hey, and then take them all and lay them out. Are they all even? If you got 5 that are perfect and one that's down here, guess which one your problem is? That one. But now if you have gammies and you do it, and they're like, well, these 2 match and those 2, okay, that's different because they're flow matched, and so they're going to do that. But otherwise, yeah, I'm going to do that. Hide your a-hole. Talk about that. All right, got that. All right, you're wondering why this screen is up there.
I do have a question. When you do that, about how long does it usually take? How long do you usually run it for it to like get that kind of result?
30 seconds.
That's it.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so these are, like I said, very sensitive. You have to be very careful how you clean them. The recommended cleaner is, what do you call that?
Hops.
Hops?
Hops, yeah.
Number 9.
So wanted to hear you say hoppies or hops.
I've heard both ways. Hops. Whatever. I don't.
Not number 8, not number 10, number 9. Yeah. Gun cleaning solvent. Oh, there's that setting right there. All right, so you got the throttle lever right here. Here's the air inlet. There's that little screw. What's this screw do? What's that screw do?
Speed.
Idle speed. There we go. I think that was it. Yep. What are these?
Impact.
Impact to
What if you have fuel leaking out of them?
Not good. It's not good.
That's gonna be a rip.
rip
Or
diaphragm.
no,
Yeah,
no,
rip
your,
diaphragm.
Your diaphragm.
The seal in between the 2.
Yep.
Oh,
All right. Let's write a bunch. Manual mixture control. Can I leave that alone because you did cover it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oscar wants it.
I know, but I explained it better than I'm going to write it, so that's the problem here. Let's see. Reduces pressure to what do I say? Metered and unmetered. And unmetered chambers. That works. Connected mechanically to, what am I talking about? Oh, to make manual mixture control. Hang on. I thought I was talking about something else for a minute here. Yeah, no, that's right. Connected mechanically to mixture control, Exterior cockpit. That's the red knob. If I push it forward, what do I have?
Rich.
Pull it back all the way.
Idle cut off.
That'll cut off. Okay. No, I'm just gonna leave it at that. That's what we're gonna do. 'Cause that's makes the most sense right there. HI automatic mixture control. Mixture control. Wait a minute. That ain't right. Oh, there we go. Okay, automatic mixture control. Have the bellows type. Bellows. Have the bellows type. Let me see. I crossed this out for some reason. I don't know why, but I like it, so I'm going to say it. The AMC works independently of and in parallel with the oh, now I know why I did that. Okay. No, it doesn't.
What?
Well, okay, so I wrote AMC works independently of and parallel with the manual mixture control, but it doesn't work with the manual mixture control. Works independently of, I will leave that. Works independently of manual mixture by providing a variable orifice between air metering forces. There, that works. Let's see. As air pressure or temperature change, as air pressure or temperature change the bellows reacts. Change the bellows. Reacts as follows. And it's break time, isn't it?
See?
C. And A. So we'll pick this back up after the break.